One of the most exciting parts of my month is when my brand new Hip Kit Club arrives. Hi guys, today I'm playing with the March Hip Kits, and this is my first layout using this kit, and I am incorporating the March cut files in this project. So I'm going to be working with the Oval Wreath and Florals March cut file, along with a February cut file that's a freebie called Love You. I'm also going to be featuring the March Color Kit, which has 3 inks and a stamp. I will be focusing on the stamp. It's a gorgeous one. It has brush strokes and ink droplets, and I can't wait to show you what you can do with this. Now the first thing I'm going to do is cut out the Oval Wreath and Florals cut file from some black cardstock from my stash. While it was still on the cutting mat, I sprinkled it with some white paint just to give it some interest. And then I'm going to hold up this cut file to all of the different pattern papers in the kit and decide which one that I want to use as my background. I decided to go with the one called Simple Connections, which has a purple watercolor on the background. Once I pick that, I am now going to back my cut file. Now, one little quick disclaimer before I keep going is that my carpets throughout my entire house were being cleaned by a crew on this day when I was filming this. So my cat Phoebe is hanging out with me in my office, and she will poke her head in from time to time just to say hello and see what's going on. So each month, Hip Kit Club creates a cardstock kit to go along with the main kit. It's an add-on kit, and what I love about it is that all of the colors, of course, coordinate perfectly. And there, on one side of the cardstock is a printed solid texture, and then on the other side they always do like a different tonal texture or a really subtle texture. And this month has this really cute, almost like tile geometric pattern in stitched lines. So for the center of the flowers, I'm using the solid side of the Mango Puff cardstock, which is an orange color. And then for the flowers, I'm using the stitched line or stitched geometric pattern in taffy, which is a pink color. So if you haven't done a cut file before, what I'm doing is I'm just dotting the glue around the shape that I want to back, and then I'm going to press some paper into it and let it dry. Once it's dry, I'm going to take some fussy cutting scissors and just carefully snip around those flowers. Now, a funny little story about this is while I was fussy cutting these out, it takes some time. So I usually stop my camera and sit on the floor or sit on a chair to work on cutting these out. And my cat happened to, like a circus animal, jump through the hoop and run down the hallway. My husband had opened the door and had startled her. I guess that's why she was dashing down the hallway with this hoop cut file around her neck. Thankfully, she didn't tear it. I was able to save it, and I can move along on my way. Now, I also wanted to back the center of this oval cut file, and I did that with the Write Me a Letter pattern paper. I love it. It has a subtle script texture to it. And then you saw around the edges that there were these black and white sketched florals. So I was pretty strategic about how I placed that oval onto that paper so that I could preserve those flowers. And as you can see here, I have fussy cut them out, and now I'm adhering them all around the floral areas of the cut file just to sort of build it out. Now, this pink paper with the dashed stripes is the other side of the purple watercolor. At this point, I was really kind of going back and forth, like what side of the paper do I want to use? I really love that watercolor look with the pink along this. I thought it would anchor this quite well. But once I got the flowers on it, the flowers sort of blended into the background. And so I do end up flipping it back over to the watercolor side. Now, as I'm adhering these sketchy flowers to the oval, I am actually adhering them to the oval so that I can still move the oval around and tuck things behind there. And so that allowed me to, again, flip it back over to the watercolor side, and I really like the way that that looks. There's sort of a darker ombre section of that watercolor, so I made sure that was at the bottom to anchor the entire oval. So I love the way that this is looking, and I'm ready to start adding my pictures here and keep working on embellishing. Now, the 2 pictures that I'm using are 3-inch square pictures, and this memory is actually is one on an Easter weekend. My parents really love to instill in their grandkids the importance of remembering their ancestors. And so on this particular Easter weekend, we had just had a lunch together, and afterwards my parents asked if we would go with them to take some flowers to the graves. And so that is what we did. And these are just all the grandkids standing in front of their great grandparents' graves, which is really sweet. So that is what my page is about today. And I'm going to go ahead and get this oval glued down because I'm for sure ready to do this purple background. I did mat those photos with the macaroon solid cardstock, which is a purple color, and I like the way that that repeats the purple color of the watercolor background. So if you've been watching my videos, you know that I have been totally into chipboard frames lately. And so I was excited to see some chipboard frames in the March embellishment kits. And I'm going to go ahead and add these frames all around my two photos to just kind of build them out and add some interesting layers around these. I chose to use all the ones that were a soft pink, a soft green, and then the bright pink. Some of them I'm cutting in half so that I can tuck one side on one edge of the photos, and then I'll use the other piece on the other side. Now this Polaroid light green frame, I'm placing it sideways so that I can use the larger area to either anchor my title or anchor my journaling. And then that right side, that other piece, the thicker piece, I'm going to add over to the right side so that I have a visual triangle of that soft green around those two photos. So you can see there's a piece of soft green at the top on the left side and now the right side. And I really like how that looks. Now, I was struggling to know what to do for my title. I did pull off that chipboard capture the moment piece, and I keep thinking that that might be my title, but it just doesn't have a lot of presence, so I'm not sure about it. I'm still thinking about it. I did grab this ticket piece from the cardstock stickers in the main kit and just tucked that under the left edge of the bottom photo, and I think that works well there. So here I am looking at this capture the moment piece. I will actually go through all of the other titles throughout the entire kit to see if there's something else I could use. But there were phrases like living my best life and stuff like that, which didn't really go with my photos, and so I will end up using a cut file in the end. Now, while I was looking for the phrase, I did come across the butterfly sheet in the sticker book, and I decided that I wanted to add butterflies to embellish this page. Now, the sticker book pads are a little bit thinner of a sticker paper, and that's because it's actually meant to be used in like journals or planners where you don't want to add a lot of bulk. But I wanted these to function as die cuts, so I went ahead and adhered them to some plain white cardstock and then fussy cut them out so that they would have a little bit of heavier feel about them, and that worked really well. I'm pulling in all of the pink, green, and blue butterflies, and right now I'm just placing them around the page. As I mentioned before, I did use a February cut file that says love you. I just used the word love as my title, and I think that worked well. I love the script font of that. I think it's so pretty, and it ties into the black color of the oval cut file and just adds a big punch. I really like it a lot. So I'll get those butterflies into place, and now I'm ready to keep moving on. I go back to the 12 by 12 cardstock stickers, and I was looking at these little phrases thinking I might add one or two around the photos, but I end up putting one that says this moment right below the title so that the title reads love this moment. Next, I'm going to go through the Pocket Life kit, and I'm looking actually for more phrases to add to the photos, but while I was doing that, I found a 3x8 journal card that was little tiny black and white polka dots, and I thought, oh my gosh, this would be really cute layered underneath the photos. I almost didn't peel them all up, but I did take out my undo and spend the time to peel all those frames and photos up just so I could tuck this piece of paper under there. And I'm glad I did, because I feel like it ties into those black and white sketch flowers and just makes the entire layout feel a bit more cohesive. So now that I have that layer added under there, I'm just going to add back in all those other pieces. I'm also going to add my phrase strips or my journaling strips to the inside of that green frame. So I'll take a moment to do that. Next, I'm going to pull out the mixed media looking stamp from the color kit. Now, this is an awesome stamp for me because I get really nervous with mixed media because I never know how it's going to turn out. I never know how the splatters are going to fall or how the paint is going to dry. And so I really like the ideas of these because it gives me more control. So I do have a lot of fun holding this stamp up and seeing where I can add these black splatters. And so if you're like me and it makes you a little nervous, this stamp set is for you. I'm using a piece of scratch cardstock to kind of block off some of the splatters as I'm adding them to the page, just so I can use little pieces of it. But this becomes kind of cumbersome for me, so I actually end up cutting apart that ink splatter stamp so that I can use all the little splatters individually. And I really like that I did that because it helps me to add variety to each of these clusters. And then again, I'm not, worried about over stamping one of the images in a place that I don't want it to. So that worked out well. Another thing I did was I did some second generation stamping, and you'll see that in a minute. If you don't know what that is, that's where you ink up your stamp and you stamp off the first dark image onto a scratch piece of paper, but then without re-inking your stamp, you stamp it again on the page and it gives it kind of a watercolor look. So I do a bit of that in a minute. Now at the beginning of the layout, you saw that I did sprinkle my page or my cut file with some white ink. And so after I get all of these ink blots stamped into place, I cover the main portions of my layout with a piece of cellophane, and then I'm going to sprinkle some white paint over these ink blots. I really love the way that that tied it into the cut file, and then it also kind of toned down the darker ink blots. And I liked it so much that off camera, I didn't realize my camera had stopped recording because the battery ran out, but off camera, I actually take that white paint and tap it onto the separate ink blot stamped images and then pat it off with some paper towel. And it kind of tones down some of the darker colors, which I really like. It made it look really watercolory, and so just take a minute to notice that in the final images at the end. So that will finish up my layout. You guys, again, these are the March hip kits, and some of them have already sold out. In fact, that stamp in the color kit is low in stock, so if you really like that, be sure to go stop by and get it soon. This video will probably go live about a week after I'm voicing this over, so hopefully they're not totally gone by then. Anyway, I had a blast creating this layout. I hope you enjoyed watching the process and hearing about my design decisions, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks so much for joining me, and have a great week.